Hello and welcome to episode 52 of our Conversations to Connect. Let's Get Real Talk, powered by Exceptional Connections. I'm Cyndi ONeill-Dady, the founder and chief connector of Exceptional Connections since 2009. At Exceptional Connections, we offer intentional and innovative solutions to boost your business. So each month, we nominate a different member of our community to have a meaningful conversation with. So be sure to make yourself comfortable with the beverage of your choice and take notes, and be sure to add comments to the chat box and engage with us during this thought-provoking conversation. Around the 45-minute mark or so, I'll unmute the lines and invite our listeners to ask questions, share their ahas, their epiphanies, and of course, to enter into our thought-provoking conversation. So in the course of these 52 episodes, we have encouraged and supported our community to stay connected during these challenging and uncertain times. So as we get started, I invite you to set aside all distractions and invest your attention to the conversation that's about to unfold. So look for just one idea that you can take away and put into action so that you don't cheat yourself out of the time you've invested here. Our conversation to connect this week is with the amazing Brenda Reiss from Bellevue, Washington. Welcome, Brenda.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is such an honor.
I'm so grateful to be here. I love this community, Cyndi.
We love you and we appreciate you so much. And, before we dive into this intriguing topic, it's time to move forward, 8 steps to help you step into your power. I want to just take a moment to introduce Brenda to our listeners. We have members of our community on the line with us live. And then for anybody who is listening afterwards, we want to really have you get to know Brenda before we dive into this conversation. So Brenda Reiss, 2-time author, speaker, and podcast host, is a sought-after transformation and forgiveness coach who guides her cherished clients from being stuck in shame, resentment, and self-sabotage to feeling freer, more expanded, and ready to share themselves and their passions with the world. When she's not providing compassionate guidance to help her clients create more abundance, clarity, and purpose, more abundance, clarity of purpose, and freedom in their lives, you can find her hiking, playing with grandkiddos, which is so much fun, right?
Yes.
Snuggling with her fur babies, or reading a book or two to expand her mind, soul, and business. So join me in welcoming Brenda Reiss to our conversation to connect. Yay, Brenda.
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome. So share with our listeners a little bit more about your journey before you dive in.
Yeah. So, life kind of led me to forgiveness. And, I've lived, like most of us, I've lived a lot of life and experiences of abuse and neglect and abandonment and trying to figure things out in life and going through, several, I joke around saying, I didn't date, I just married, and by the time I got to my third one, it was kind of like, whoa, this is a biggie. And so, learning a lot along the way, and then having my wake up, having my kind of wake up to, wait a second, the common denominator here is me. And because I had gone through a deep depression and anxiety and not feeling like I fit in, and what am I doing? And that was when I was working in corporate. And so my body started to break down. I was looking at, my husband going, wait a minute, this is familiar, this pattern here. And so I went through a heck of a divorce and was trying to find myself. And it was interesting because the forgiveness work found me. And, I was asking, I was praying, I was talking to the universe. I'm like going, all right, this corporate stuff after 30 plus years is not working. My boss was just like my ex-husband. I couldn't do anything right. Nothing was going smoothly. I was working hard. And finally, after, my naturopath's going, I need a neck fusion, back fusion, and I had a brain tumor. Maybe we need to pay attention, right? So when I looked at it that way, and that's when the forgiveness work kind of found me. And it's like, I didn't really know I needed that type of forgiveness. I thought I was okay, but I wasn't, because I didn't want to get up in the morning. I didn't, I was struggling so much. And with the forgiveness work, it showed me some patterns and beliefs. That's why I love it so much. That helped me to get clear on where I was not showing up, and how I can make it easier on myself through forgiveness.
Wow. I think we can just stop there. And there's so
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
There's so much in what you just shared.
I
And
know.
really, I just want to, start our call off with so much vulnerability. So thank you for, being transparent and willing to share your journey. I mean, life led me to forgiveness, and forgiveness showed me that your forgiveness work found you. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. Brenda, thank you so much. And so you shared with our Exceptional Connections community on Valentine's Day, and you shared your 5 steps to help you step into your power. And we're really grateful that you're coming back, and we can have a deeper conversation on the content that you shared with our community, and also to offer 3 bonus steps.
Yeah.
So before we get going here, would you please give us a recap of the 5 steps for those who were not able to join us, as well as a good refresher and opportunity to fill in our notes for those who were able to hear your talk last week?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I always like a recap, because, when we're in it, we don't kind of grasp some of the things. But after we hear it again, it's kind of
Yes.
helpful. So we started with the exercise of recognizing that stuck energy and where it was in the body, which that was step number 1, which was creating awareness. And we were asked the question, what do I continue to feel resentment or anger about? Because what that stuck energy showed us is we still had some work to do. Now, this led us into that mirror exercise of thinking about a person that irritates or frustrates us, and then wrote down what that behavior was or the actions were that frustrated you. And then we looked at what those reflections, where they were showing up for us. And I gave examples of that, right? If I'm
Right.
really mad at somebody for being demeaning or mean to myself or other people, where am I doing that for myself? Because we can only control, right, ourselves, not
Right.
others. And that led us to become willing, which was step number 2, willingness. Because we need that willingness to be able to explore our patterns and beliefs that are behind that number 1 block that we talked about to our next level of greatness. We explored that by looking at the areas of the cost of that stuckness: lack of energy, time wasted, physical ailments, depression, anxiety, weight gain, because that can actually, it's a real thing, just to name a few of those. And when we were able to look at the cost and get really honest with ourselves, that led us into step number 3, which was
Before you
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
next one, could I just jump in real quick?
Absolutely.
So I've heard this in my life in the past, and I really believe this too. So there's a cost, but there's also a payback, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're
A
getting,
secondary gain.
whenever we're allowing certain behaviors to continue in our life,
Mhm.
that's always a sobering thought to me. I'm like, what am I getting out of it?
Yes.
Because if the cost is high enough, you're not going to allow that to continue in your life, right?
Right. But there's also comfort in our discomfort,
Hmm.
right? So even though
There
it's a
is.
cost,
Right.
right, there's comfort in that.
Somehow in a warped kind of way.
Well, they call that a secondary gain. Right.
Yes.
In that's a secondary gain. So if I have a cost of time wasted,
Mhm.
then I'm getting something out of that, which is because I'm afraid to show up, right? So that cost, even though what it does is I'm afraid to show up. So I'm going to continue to feed this over
Mhm.
here, the time wasted or the lack of energy, even though I get tired of it. And if you are like me, Cyndi, and I think a lot of us are, we have a tipping point. I call it a choice point in forgiveness.
Mm.
We get to a
Mhm.
choice point. It's kind of the fork in the road.
Right.
And all of a sudden it's like, is this cost getting heavy enough for me to make a difference? If I'm
Right.
crying like I was every day to work, if I'm losing friendships, or if people are treating me badly, right? If I'm putting up with it, there comes a choice point time. And that's where sometimes sometimes I feel like I'm not totally in control of it. Sometimes I feel like there's something else guiding me towards it, to where it's like, okay, honey, it's time, you know,
Right.
where something will fall into your lap, like a book or a person comes and says, hey, there's a different way.
Right. Well, your steps are so beautiful because it's like an awakening. Step one, creating awareness. You have to have an awareness before you can even acknowledge it's there, right? There's a
Correct.
problem. And then the willingness, you have to have a willingness to be able to step into it.
Yeah.
And then I won't trump you on the third one, but I love the progression of what you're offering here, because
Yeah.
it really does. It's an awakening of our souls to take responsibility for what's going on, instead of continuing to accept it and
Well,
just live,
yeah.
live with it.
And I think that's how we work. It's like we have things in order for a reason. I
Yes.
can't jump into taking action until I have awareness
Right.
of what it is. We can't change what we don't know is there,
Right.
you know? So you said it so beautifully.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
beautiful. That's
Well,
wonderful. So yeah,
well,
thank you for that. Because that
you're
foundation really, all of a sudden I had this epiphany or aha that, sometimes we don't know we're in victimhood.
oh, exactly.
I mean, not everybody walks around saying, I'm a victim. Yay, this is fun. It's just you wear that badge and you think it's just like, this is my lot in life. I just
Yes.
have to endure it, have to put my head high. But at some point you realize, I don't want to wear that anymore, or that doesn't fit me anymore. And so I love the progression that you're offering us and these steps to, really step into our power. So, you know, feel free to jump into 3.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to make a quick comment about that victimhood, because that's where I was a good part of my life. I
Mm,
thought that's just how it was supposed to be. That like every man that I got in relationship with was going to have an affair on me. They were going to choose someone or something over me. I
mm,
just thought that's how it was, until I realized that was that was the belief I made up at 5 years old, when my dad left for another family, who had a daughter just like me, and he had paid attention to her and not me. I
mm,
made that up and I had no conscious awareness of it. And it took the
mm,
forgiveness work after years of therapy. It took the forgiveness work to help me notice that pattern.
right.
So I don't have that now. Thank goodness. But, you know, it's just amazing how we don't know we're in
No.
victimhood
And
until,
a 5-year-old is not supposed to know,
well, no.
right? And so
Oh,
you did the best you could with your little 5-year-old self,
yes.
and whatever you said to yourself helped you at the time, but those things don't serve us as adults. And that's why we have a choice as adults.
We do have a choice, and we can switch it around, which we're going to talk about in one of those bonus steps. But number 3, so we have to have that willingness to even be vulnerable, right? We have to be
Right.
willing to take a look inside and see before we can even do step number 3, which is self-responsibility. So you were asked, what is it that I really want in this situation? What do I truly desire? And then we really emphasized, what do I desire? Not the folks, not the parents, not society, not all of that, but really being honestly true with ourselves. And I really encouraged everyone to feel their feelings. That's the hardest step in the forgiveness work, because we're not taught. And that's what I spend the most time on when I work with people, because we really can't heal what we aren't able to truly feel, you know? And I think
Say that
that,
again. Say that again. That's
yes,
so beautiful and profound.
we really can't heal what we aren't able to truly feel.
Mhm.
Powerful. And I didn't get that, because I thought, oh, I'm emotional, I feel stuff. And it was like, oh no, that's different. That's different, to be able to feel what your true feelings are, to be able to sit with them. Because when you sit with them, they move through quicker than burying them. That's
Mhm.
the reason I couldn't get out of bed. That's the reason that I
Mhm.
was so depressed and anxious. I didn't have an outlet for where these feelings could go in a healthy way. So I
Right.
drank. I drank, right? So I did all these other distractions to try to manage that. which didn't help. But now, able to name it, be with it, it can move through within a couple minutes in a healthy way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Beautiful.
thank you. And through this willingness, and then when we can take responsibility for our feelings and how we were showing up, we can consciously create our lives, right? Instead of being held hostage from the past, because now we can choose differently, which is step number 4, choice. Because as human beings, we don't do anything without a cost or a benefit. So we talked about the cost. And then in this choice step, we were asking ourselves, how might forgiving myself or others benefit me? So now we're going to look at the other side of it, the benefit. And you were given these questions to explore a bit deeper. What is your benefit for forgiving? Now, if we look at those costs in those areas of costs, what's the opposite of those for you? How do you want to feel without that stuck energy? And what could you accomplish? Because we're holding ourselves back. That was that number 1 block. We're holding ourselves back from something, showing up, visibility, reaching out to people, getting in a relationship. If we're talking life, we are holding ourselves back. So what could you accomplish? And really feeling into that feeling of the benefit for you then leads us into that number 5, which was,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, excuse me for interrupting again,
No,
but
please.
I just see it so clearly now, the way you lay this out of, each progression along the way here. And, the last, creating the awareness, willingness, self-responsibility, and then, the choice here. It's just like removing the veil, because
Yeah.
it really is a veil. It's not, I I often think of things when it feels overwhelming to me. It feels
Yeah.
like a brick wall. And it feels like this really thick brick wall that like you
Yeah.
can't take a hammer to and just obliterate it. But in reality, it's a paper wall. It's a veil.
Yes.
Once we have that awareness. So that's really what, came to me as I'm listening to you again and seeing this progression that's so beautiful, that just kind of slowly just gets us to wake up.
Yes. Oh, you said that so beautifully.
Well,
I
it's
love how
just,
you do that.
no, I'm really touched by this, the power of being able to see things, and in seeing them, in taking responsibility, it's almost like they go poof, they don't, it takes work, but they don't have that same power, right?
Mm-mm. Well, no, especially when we can kind of allow ourselves to go through the steps and really work it. And it doesn't have to take a super long time. It doesn't have to take us as long to go through this as it did for us to get here. We're more willing and ready right now
Oh, that's a
to,
really good point. Because some
yeah.
people think it took 20 years, it's going to take 20 years.
No. Oh, heavens, no. It's a lot faster.
Right.
Thank goodness. I know that's how I felt too. But this forgiveness work, it was like, wow, I shifted more quickly. 1, because I was willing, right?
Right.
But 2, it was also the fact of, oh, I get it. In this progression, my brain could be willing, because what I call in this forgiveness work is it gives me my head something to do so my heart can heal, right?
Mhm.
Because my heart's protecting
Oh,
myself. My heart's hurt. My heart's
gives your
wounded.
head something to do so your heart can heal. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is really beautiful.
Thank you.
And okay, so we're talking about time here, the factor of time, and how it doesn't take the same amount of time to heal as going through that process, right?
Yes.
And then it's like an onion too. I'm seeing a picture of an onion. So every time, because we get triggered, right?
Yes, we
Things
do.
happen in life. I mean, like you can go through this whole process. You can go through, I'm sure your 8 steps and
Yep.
think, oh my goodness, I feel like, this huge weight has been lifted from my shoulders and I feel better. And, whatever was holding you down no longer has that power. And then something happens. And in a blink of an eye, it's like a button was pushed. We're like right back there, right?
Yep. Yes. Oh my gosh.
And with the right tools, you can walk through those steps and
Yes.
go through it quicker, I imagine, right?
Absolutely. When we have the tools, like I love to say that, when we have the
Mhm.
tools, we can pull them out and we can be reminded of the tools because we all forget. When we're in a trigger and
Sure.
we're heightened, we got to have that support, which we're going to talk about, to
Right.
be able to remind us because we all need reminders.
Yes.
That's why these communities are awesome, and creating a community where we can say, where we can be vulnerable and go, I'm struggling here.
Right.
I'm struggling.
And
And
that's the most beautiful thing to me. And I'm just going to quickly mention it. I
yeah.
won't mention names, but we have members of our community after your talk that were so raw and vulnerable and shared like what what you had been through, what they had been through, and how
Yeah.
your steps had just unlocked that for them. And to me, that is such a beautiful thing that we can be in each other's presence and be that real with each other. I think it's just, there's no words for that. It's just too beautiful. And that we can support each other because we all go through this. None of us is like, oh, yeah, I don't need this. We all have it in our lives. And, I'm sure before taking this, sharing with us, it kind of came up in your life again because that's how it works, right? You
Exactly.
get tested before you know, I know that for me, whenever I do something like that, I always get tested beforehand. And it's like,
Always.
okay, this is real. I'm not just, putting on a happy face. It's in order to help heal others, we have to do our own work.
Oh, yes. I get to visit my forgiveness work often.
I'm, I'm imagining that.
Oh, yeah. And, the last couple years have been a really deep dive into especially self-forgiveness.
Mm,
And that's where really my heart is, because in my work, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness. When we can use this shift of perception, right? And which we talked about in the mirror exercise, right? Relationships are for growth and healing. No one said they were all unicorns and rainbows. But we thought in our head that they were Hollywood. Let's blame Hollywood, right? So, but they're not. They're about learning and growth. They're about mirroring and reflecting for us those things that we've denied, repressed, and rejected about ourselves. And so
mm,
when we look at it this way, now we can't jump to that. But in this forgiveness work, when I was able to do that, that shifted everything for
right.
me. And so helping women get to that point of being able to do that creates a brand new opening for them.
Hmm. Brenda, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm hearing it in a new way right now. All forgiveness is self-forgiveness because
Mhm.
a lot of times we think of forgiveness and we make a list of all the people in our life that, have wronged us or that we
Yes.
perceive have wronged us and that we need to forgive.
Right.
And, it's usually the closest people in our life.
Oh, yes.
Isn't that lovely? But
Yeah.
it is because they have access to us and whatnot. But
Right.
really we're giving them power, right? We've learned that.
Mhm.
We're
Yes.
giving people power and that whole there's a beautiful little saying about that in terms of, unforgiveness is a poisonous pill that you
Right. You
take,
take
right?
expecting another person to die. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a gruesome kind of
I
a
know.
picture there, but it also is sobering, and
Yeah.
so to be able to start with self-forgiveness is really, like you said, that's where the deep healing comes in.
Well, it does. And I will say real quick before we move on. And the fact is how I start with people, how I had to start was we do start outside of ourselves.
Mm.
So, because within my head is a judge, a jury, prosecutor, defense attorney, the victim, and the perpetrator. I got all
Oh,
that going on,
wow.
right? We all do. And so when they all talk at one time, it's like nobody's going to forgive anybody because they all want to be heard.
Right.
And then we just get frozen and overwhelmed.
Right.
So we don't jump into the self-forgiveness. We ease into it
Mm.
because we've got this belief and we've got some stories, right? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I got stories that keep popping up. And
Mm.
so, and as I've learned and I teach now, it's like we don't necessarily get totally rid of them, but we can sure learn how to manage them and handle them differently.
And identify them.
Definitely identify them.
So that the awareness kicks in and we can go through that process. And oh, beautiful. I love it.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
good.
So we start outside of ourselves in the reflection of who in my life, especially those close to us, are showing me something that I can learn about myself. We then get to forgive them, which really helps us forgive ourselves.
Which is a mirror, right? Like you said.
It's a mirror. But when you do the work through this process and the other tools that I provide, it's like, oh, I see it. And it's easier to get out of victim and step into our power. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that little
detour
we took there.
Yeah, I know. Thank you for bringing that up. But so step number 5 was taking action. And this was, we talked about a few things, but this was the exercise of writing the love letter to your business. And for at least 14 days. And it can be, if it's a life thing you're working through, it can be a letter to you, yourself, your body, anything, right? Your health. The love letter is where you can really express yourself. And doing that really helps you connect differently and better. And the information you get in those letters, like journaling, is fabulous.
So is that the letting go part? You know, that, you know, the Frozen song, let it go.
It's a way for us to get to the letting go. It brings in more understanding and compassion. Because to be able to let go, we really have to have that benefit, right? We gotta feel it. We gotta feel the benefit. So yes, that's what it is. It helps us to learn to let go. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
All
right. So drum roll for number 6.
I know. Okay. So this next step, normally, like in a normal process, would be, so this next step would have gone after choice, right? And before taking action. Because after we have choice, then we're going to reframe our story. So that's the first bonus step, number 6.
Okay. So before we get going here, can you give us an example of how we would, or what reframing is, how we would reframe our story? I'm sure you're going to go into that, but that seems like something that our listeners might be wanting to understand, like, what is reframing our story?
Yeah, absolutely. So a reframe in forgiveness work refers to shifting one's perspective, right? Or way of thinking about a past hurt. In order so that we can even get to forgiveness. And in the radical forgiveness work, it's looking at the situation from a different angle and finding a new way to interpret it that not only has you thinking about it differently, but also feeling less pain around it. Because in the forgiveness work, it's about shifting our perception, which changes our energy.
Right.
And so, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I did landmark work. After my divorce, and that helped me a lot. That was in the, let's see, they did the wasn't the SELP, it was before that. I forget which course it was, but where you have a story, everybody has a story, their version of what happened.
Yes.
You know, that was painful. And then we had a notebook and we had to just write our story out. And I mean, pages and pages. They gave people hour, just to write your story out. And then you had to partner up with somebody and you had to read your story to the other person. So we've got like 150 people in the room. So there's 75 pairs and there's all this just crying and gut wrenching, moaning and groaning. And then we're supposed to switch and then we're supposed to they read their story to us and the same kind of emotion. And then we switch and, I read my story again. And it was interesting because by the second, third time, instead of moaning and groaning and crying, there was laughing from the person who was reading it. And they're like, oh my gosh, that is like ridiculous. And that's a likely story. And I'm not interested in that anymore. I don't have no attachment to that. So gosh, that experience was so powerful to me. So that's my experience of reframing. And I love your definition of it for everybody else, but I experienced that personally and it was powerful.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It does. It releases the attachment. And that's where we want to go because attachment causes our suffering.
Yes.
And so, yes, I loved your example. Um, so for those of us that have been hurt deeply by someone in the past, and we are holding on to this anger and resentment towards them through this process, like Cyndi just said, of reframing, you get to view the situation in a new light, such as, I mean, so because what we can do is it brings in a little bit more of compassion and understanding. And maybe that person struggled with their own issues, right? We start to kind of look at it differently. But the biggest movement we experience comes from being able to look at the whole situation in the light of what it taught us about ourselves and our relationships. That's a big step. So we reframe it. So we start to look at, like you just said, Cyndi, which was beautiful. I don't have this attachment to it. Now we would take another step and go, wait a minute, what did I learn from it? Because reframing can help shift our emotional response from anger and hurt to compassion and understanding.
Mm,
And this makes forgiveness more attainable. Now, I want to have a caveat here that reframing doesn't mean denying or minimizing our hurt
no.
at all. It's
Right.
acknowledging it while also finding a healing perspective. And so for me, it's looking at the fact of, okay, yes, I'm going to bring in compassion, walk in their shoes for a little bit and kind of go, okay, I know this person's kind of background and I know that they were going through some tough stuff, or maybe I don't know, but I get to be willing to do that. And then I get to go, well, how did that make me who I am today? Because all of the abuse, right, that I've gone through has made me more compassionate
Yes.
towards other people. It was actually part of my calling. Looking back at it, my perspective
Part of
is
your
like,
journey.
oh, yeah, I couldn't hold this space for women. I couldn't hold a safe space and allow women to tell me things that they've never told anybody else in their life.
Mhm.
If they can't feel from me that I get it.
Right. And that's so beautiful because it really just speaks to nothing is wasted, right?
Nothing is
Anything, everything we've been through in life has made us who we are, and
yeah.
we can embrace that and we can be grateful for it. And it becomes part of our story to make a difference in
Yes.
the lives of others. So I've never really seen this picture before, but as you're talking, I'm seeing a picture of like a balloon that is being inflated. And I haven't processed this, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain this very well, but it's like when we have an offense, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger
Oh.
and bigger. And then the reframing feels like a pop, you know? I don't know why. Maybe you
Oh,
can
I love
explain
that.
that visual, if that maybe that doesn't apply, but that's just what I saw while I'm hearing you just develop
Yeah.
this.
Oh, no, 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 because that was beautifully said, because when we can reframe it, it is an aha. It's a pop. It's like,
Mhm.
oh,
Yeah.
I get it now.
Yes.
Maybe it's not about me in that sense.
Right.
Maybe, and maybe what part of it is about me.
Right.
Then I have some control, and that's bringing my power back.
Right.
That's beautiful. I love that visual. I may steal that. Okay.
Oh, you're welcome to. I just saw it while I'm like and it's red.
Oh, yeah, of
By the way,
course.
it's a red balloon.
Oh, I
It's
love
big and
that.
ugly and mean looking, but in the end, it's poof, it's gone. Now, not to say there's not work. And again, here's my picture. When you pop a big balloon, what do you
Mhm.
have? All these pieces, right?
Yes.
You still have to clean it up. It doesn't disappear, but it's not this looming thing that felt so
No.
overwhelming and intimidating.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I love that, because it's right. Now we get to pick up the pieces, throw away the ones that no longer work for us, and maybe keep the ones that we want to encourage for ourselves moving forward. Oh,
Mm.
thank you for that. That was fabulous. You're just brilliant, Cyndi.
Oh, oh,
You
you're
are.
sweet. I've been on this journey myself, and um, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to have labels for some of the stuff that I've been through. I didn't go through a clean 8-step process like you're providing us today. Some of the pieces have come in different forms, in different things that I've chosen to be a part of. But, you know, I think my greatest compliment that I've ever received in my life is from my daughter, who in the last, I don't know, let's just say 3 years, has said to me, Mom, you've done your work. You've made a difference in my life because I've seen you do your work. And I'm like, oh, because I know I've done my work, but to have my daughter acknowledge that, and I haven't told her all the work I've done. She doesn't know.
No, well, she doesn't have to. She sees it and she feels it.
So that's, you know, that's really encouraging to me, because sometimes it feels like, yes, I've done the work and like there's so much more to do, you know.
It's a lifelong process.
It is. So I just want to acknowledge you, Brenda, and your brilliance for laying it out so cleanly and simply, so that I'm actually going to, you know, I've got my notes and I'm going to keep those notes close by, so that as that onion gets triggered again, I can go through it and just say, okay, you know, here we go. This is part of the process. And I'm committed to being a person that doesn't carry, you know, ball and chain, who doesn't, you know, hold on to like a blanket, you know, victimhood, who, you know, makes a difference in the world and can raise the vibrations in this planet.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we move on to the last two?
Yes, please do. Let's go.
Let's do that. So number 7 is, of course, be forgiving.
Right.
All of this, we have to be aware, we have to take responsibility, we get to have choice so that we can get to the point of forgiveness. And like I said earlier, right, the self-forgiveness piece where we got everybody in our head, you know, it's and an inner critic to boot. It can feel totally overwhelming. Yet learning ways to forgive ourselves is a really important step to healing and self-acceptance. So we can acknowledge and accept our feelings. That's important. This is key to forgiving yourself and others. I have a right to my feelings.
Right.
And know that it's normal to feel guilty, shame, or remorse about past actions. Allow yourself to feel these emotions without judgment. And then do the self-forgiveness, self-acceptance work so you can heal through the guilt and shame. Now, if you have anger and hurt towards someone else, it's important to have your story witnessed, like you talked about, Cyndi, witnessed and validated. Feel the feelings around it, and then do the work to bring your power back to you. Because when we blame others, we are giving them our power. And there's also power in what you just shared when you tell your story over and over again. But there's also power when I sit with someone and I say, you're going to tell me this story for the last time this way. That's powerful, because they have permission then to go, oh, I don't have to carry the story. No, you don't. And also part of forgiveness is making amends. If your actions have hurt others, try to make it right by apologizing for your part and repairing damage where possible. And I want to say only if it is safe to do so, because some of us have been in situations where it's not safe to make amends. So we have other tools that we can use to do that energetically. And then if you are feeling unforgiving towards yourself, it's important to make those amends to you. Write that love letter to yourself. And then practice self-compassion. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to a friend. Be kind and understanding with yourself. You know, work on replacing self-criticism with that self-compassion. And because this is for self-forgiveness and forgiving others, because we are lacking the self-compassion in our wounds. That's what keeps us in that cycle.
Right.
Yep.
Wow. So Brenda, I just want to go back real quickly to making amends. And I just want to acknowledge and thank you for that little caveat, because sometimes the person that we want to feel that we need to make amends to isn't a safe person.
No. Or
they're not, I don't know how else to say it. They're not, I don't want to put any judgment on it, but they're just not, we don't feel that they would receive.
Correct.
and it could be an arrow used against us. And we're still in that journey, that process of healing
Right.
ourselves. So we're still like, a little wobbly, if you will.
Right.
And maybe down the road, we could stand firm and like, take it, but we're not quite ready for that yet. And so I think having discernment, that's the word I was looking for, having the discernment to know who is a safe person to be able to do that with, make amends with, versus just doing that process in our own heart and knowing that and trusting ourselves that we're on the right track.
Correct. And there's other ways to do it, right? There's other ways, because forgiveness doesn't mean that you have to get an apology or say an apology directly to the person.
Right.
Forgiveness is about us. And so
Yes.
what we really can recognize is, oh, there's other ways that I can get to forgiveness
Right.
without confronting, and some people, sometimes they're dead. Sometimes we've got,
Yes, that's the point I was just going to bring up. And I
Yeah.
actually attended one of your forgiveness workshops, which was
Yeah.
so powerful. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
If any of you have an opportunity to attend one of her workshops, it was live and before COVID, and it was beautiful and really helped me with, the issue that I had at the time that I still needed to resolve. But yes, in some cases, and this is what illustrates how you don't really need to do it to that person, is the person could no longer be with us on this planet.
Yes.
And it's just as powerful.
It is very powerful. My mom had died when I did the work on her. And it was super powerful. And also my dad. And so, yeah, we don't, and sometimes like with certain friends who aren't along the same path as we are, because that was brought up, in our talk, was, when we feel betrayed, or if we feel, or somebody else is jealous or upset or comparing to us the work we're doing, it's not a safe environment for us to directly talk to them. But there's other work that we can do around it. And it's really important, because a lot of people don't realize that.
Right.
So this is powerful. So thank you for sharing that. And shall we do the last?
Yes, let's finish up with step 8.
So step 8 is your next level. It's integrating your new story. Now, after all that we've just experienced, it's time to move forward. We've been able to identify places of stuck energy, and we've worked through it to get to the place of understanding and compassion. So what was that next level of greatness you wrote down? And then what was the number one block to getting to that next level of greatness? Okay. So,
right.
Yeah. So
Can I just mention before you go on, so I don't know if this is backing up or right in here, but
sure.
I noticed in my life that there's times that there's people that I really respect and value. We all have those people in our world, right?
Yes.
And we're thinking, wow, they've done their work and they're so wise and sage and all that kind of stuff. And I always aspire to be like them,
Yes.
to really have somebody. I like to have a lot of people in my life like you and a lot of the people on this call today who I respect so much, and how I value the journey that they've been on and the lessons that they've learned, and that I can kind of, what do they call it? Clear. I could take on myself. There's a word I'm looking for and I can't find it. But here's the thing I was going to share about that, is that what I've noticed in my life, and maybe you can put it more eloquently than I'm going to right now, is it's not that anybody is perfect or had done everything right, but it's part of the journey of what they've learned and how they have these steps, whether it's intuitively or they've, just done the work themselves, but they're moving through it faster. So we all get triggered, but what I've noticed in life is the difference between somebody who's, let's just say, done the work and maybe is in victimhood and hasn't done the work and maybe not even interested in doing the work, is that the only difference that I've seen, and I'm going to put it very simplistically, and feel free to weigh in on this, we could talk about this in a few minutes when we open the lines, is you're just moving through it faster. You're moving through the process faster. That's been my impression. And again, with people that I respect, that's what I've seen. It's not like they don't feel the feelings. It's not that they don't get triggered. It's not that they don't get stuck. They just move through it quicker. What's
Well,
your
yeah.
take on that?
No, they are, because the thing I want to remind people is this: we don't know somebody's story. Like when we were having the conversation before we even got on, it was like I was comparing my insides to somebody else's outsides. And when I do that, that brings the shame and the guilt and the comparison and all that within me. So it's important to recognize we don't know someone's story. We don't know how much work they've done. We don't know what they've gone through to get to where they're at. And we are all going through what we need to go through at the pace we are meant to go through it. We wake up, it's like somebody starting a business at 60, and then we have a 30-year-old that's already like a millionaire. Well,
Yeah.
crap, what?
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, wait a minute. I wasn't meant to do that.
It's not our time.
It's not our time. And it's learning to trust that
Yeah.
within
But this is
ourselves.
our time.
This is our time. And this is a time. And right. And if we wouldn't be on this call, if it wasn't time for all of us, right? We couldn't get there before. And we learn to trust that by being self-aware, because good leaders are self-aware, right? That's the number one thing. Get to know yourself first, because this is the person you hang out with the most.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. So bring us home now.
Yes. So when it came to that block, I want people to kind of take note, write this down. How do you now feel about that block? Is it more permeable? Is it not so rigid? Is it even there as we go through and do the work? Because to achieve our next level in our life and business, it's important to release those old stories, right? That was holding that number one block in place. Holding on to the past prevents us from moving forward. So here's some questions. How do you want to feel? Emphasis on feel in this next level in your life or business. Get clear, super clear on those feelings and bring them in. What does this next level look like, smell like, taste like, feel like? Can you see it? Write it down, bring in your senses, and then get something tangible that represents it. Keep it in front of you. Not necessarily a vision board, something that's very tangible. And then seek support from trusted friends, colleagues, and coaches that support you and where you want to go and who you are becoming in that next level. Because we can't up-level our business without up-leveling ourselves. Our inner work is imperative. And if you're holding on to any grudges around others or yourself, it's important to get them written down. Be honest with yourself, right? And then know that you're not meant to go through it alone. None of us are. It is a strength to ask for help. Because when we talked about it, when we forgive ourselves, we create a forgiving world. And we are here to make an impact. Otherwise, we wouldn't be going through all of this stuff. Right? And I wanted to end with that Marianne Williamson quote. The practice of forgiveness is the biggest contribution to the healing of the world, because we are the light.
Oh, I love that. That is so beautiful. The practice of forgiveness is the biggest contribution to the healing of our world. And boy, do we need it now more than ever in this world. We really need to do the work ourselves, right?
Yes, we do. It starts with us.
It starts with us. We have to take personal responsibility. And I love what you say about writing it down, because I've heard this, and maybe you can kind of comment on this and then we'll open it up here, is our subconscious doesn't know the difference, right?
No, it doesn't
We
know
write
whether
it
it's
down
happening
or we
now or
say
before.
it.
Yep, exactly.
In fact, I think my brain's in my hand sometimes. Because there's something really powerful about, I know for me going through college, I took copious notes.
Right.
And sometimes I wouldn't reread them because it just, the fact of me writing them down,
right.
it just really, there's like this connection to my brain.
Well, there's studies that prove that. Using your senses, that's why they have the kids draw them, and also in the air, they have them draw the alphabet with their bodies along with the pencil.
Right.
Is because the more that you use your senses, the more it becomes more, ingrained.
Yeah, the kinesthetic piece of it just really connects our brains.
And that's part of integrating our story. When we bring in a new story and part of the forgiveness work, we do that. We do movement. We bring it in. That's why having something tangible is really valuable. Anything to really get your whole body involved in it.
That's so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead and, we have some listeners on the line, and you're welcome to unmute yourself. And if you have any questions or epiphanies, ahas to enter into our conversation, we'd love to be able to continue this conversation before we close here. Feel free. Patricia.
Brenda, I want to thank you because seeing you at the networking event and doing the 5-point exercise with you really brought to key something that had been really bothering me since June with a couple of my friends, where I did feel betrayal. I didn't feel understood. I didn't feel even cared for by them. And even though I thought I had worked through it, I really didn't work through it. So sometimes we think we've addressed something and we really haven't done the deeper work that we need to do, and realized it was showing in me not wanting to get out of bed, and me not really showing up for myself. And for anyone listening, I just retired from a 30-year real estate career and just has been certified and to be a body language strategist and getting certified as a life coach, but I wasn't showing up for myself the way I know that I was capable of. And realizing that this was weighing on my heart and created such a heaviness in my life. So I want you to know I took, I got your permission to talk about it with my life coach. We talked about it. We worked on it, got some verbiage. I made the calls that day. And it was amazing that since last Thursday, I have been showing up for myself, not at 100%, but taking, because I've been taught you don't go from 0 to 60, but because you're setting yourself up for failure. But I'm now showing up every day a little bit more and a little bit more, and the energy is starting to come back. I didn't realize, I mean, when you did that, just this big, huge heaviness in my heart. And it really brought that awareness. So I did sign up for your workshop. So I'm looking forward to working through a lot of other things that I need to forgive or be aware of and work through. So I'm really looking forward to it. So I want to say thank you on that. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention, I love the word compassion, because my word for the year is intention in my business. So I show up always, if I show up here, what's my intention? What's the result do I want? If I have a conversation with someone, what's my intention? Is there a result that I want from it? If I'm having a meeting with a client, what's the my intentional result? But the word in my personal life is the word compassion, because I really agree with you. Sometimes we don't even have compassion for ourselves, compassion for others, or compassion for the world. And I think compassion is really lacking big time.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Trish, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, you look different.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it. You're glowing more. And that's what I love to see, because I can physically see a difference from last week to this week.
Oh, it was so heavy, and I don't think we realize what is keeping us down.
Yeah.
And so I encourage anybody who doesn't feel like maybe they're living up to 100% of their potential, but don't think that they have any injuries to them or insults to them or any forgiveness, that there's something buried down. I mean, I'm looking forward because I have something that happened in my 30s that I feel like I've forgiven myself for, but I'm not sure it's 100% forgiveness. So I'm really excited to take those steps to make sure that that's all the way, worked through.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Patricia, I want to just acknowledge you, because I've gotten to know you over the last number of months here going live at events. And it's such a joy to have you as part of our community. But one thing I love, and there's so many things I love about you, but one of the things that just really I would like to acknowledge is, yes, your willingness to do the work, but you're doing the work for yourself so that you can be your best self to give back to others. And I think that's so important, because it's not like you're putting the other first. Like, okay, I got to get my business going and bring the clients in, and then I'll, like take care of stuff. You're doing it in a way that's really giving you a strong foundation for your business going forward. I'm sure you know it. This is a conscious decision on your part, because you want to show up, like Brenda says, excuse me, you want to show up your best self for others as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things too that's important for me is when I started my, in October 2020, when I went to my coach and I said, let's break me down and build me back up and get rid of my limiting beliefs. I lived a lot of that very out loud in TikToks, Facebook Reels, Facebook Lives, even showing up crying and totally lost because I think that sometimes when we are, and you've also mentioned how much I will speak up and I will share a little bit of my story. I'm trying to be vulnerable to show the world it's okay to be vulnerable. And we learn from each other
Yes.
so much. And when we keep it all bottled in, so I sometimes just feel like I want to be the voice for those that can't find their voice and then let them know that you can do the work. It doesn't have to look like how I'm doing the work at all, but I feel like that's one of my callings. So I have very much lived my life out loud. So thank you for recognizing.
Yeah. Well, your life is basically her list, willingness, creating awareness, self-responsibility, choice. And so all those words are you're living those words.
Thank
And
you.
so, yes, I love that about you, Patricia and Brenda. Thank you so much for generously sharing your journey and how it's led you to today and being able to, really identify those key steps that do help you to step into your power. And we all need to do that right now, don't we? I mean, it's 2023 for anybody who's listening to this replay after the fact. And we've been through a crazy 3 years, the last 3 years. And I think it's really important for us to not just step into life, like where we were. We've all been through things that have broken us down, but the intention is to build us up. But we have that choice.
I just want to say, I think too, and I lightly mentioned this because of COVID and how many people had to pivot their lives differently. I feel that there's a lot of resentment out there and a lot of anger on being pushed to make decisions, being pushed into situations. And that I really want to encourage women and men to do the workshop, to do the work, because you can say, oh, yeah, I'm angry, but it's over. But somewhere it's in your body. And like Brenda says, that causes dis-ease. I mean, my health in just a week and a half, or it's just been a week really, has improved already because I acknowledged from that meeting that there was something that was making me feel. And I didn't know it was just, Brenda, that feeling just came over me and it just whooshed in me. And I go, that's why I'm doing this. I have unforgiveness and I feel betrayed and I feel hurt. And I thought I dealt with it, but not at the level that I needed to. And I think that how you just impacted me with the 5 steps and going through this 8-week workshop. Oh, girl, watch out.
No, woo, sky's the
Thank
limit.
you. Thank you.
So I'd like to open up to other listeners. And while you guys are unmuting yourself, I just want to mention, Patricia, what you just said about dis-ease. So we know the word disease. When I heard that years ago, that was like huge to me. So we hold on to that. And that's where a lot of the manifestation of a lot of diseases in our body, they settle in when we have that, it's stuck basically, right? It doesn't have that yin yang vitality flow. There's something that's stuck in our body. And so we have to let go of that. But the awareness of, okay, my body's in a state of dis-ease can lead us to that self-awareness and all of the choice and all those steps. So I love that word. That's beautiful that you brought that up. Anybody else want to share? We're just getting ready to close here, but I want to make sure I give everybody a chance. So, hey, Chuck.
Hey, so Brenda, a question I got, I always love to hear what you have to say. I mean, it's so great what you do and how you organized your thoughts and the process. I think it's just amazing to me. I hope someday you have a course for men,
Oh, yeah, thank you. This is a good idea.
Yeah, because men deal with this a lot as well, and men don't have anywhere to go.
No, I've had a couple men in my workshops over the years, and I had a couple men private clients. It's amazing, the pain that exists
Yes.
for them,
So
and no outlet.
yeah, there is no outlet. And especially these days, it seems like, men get cornered a lot. And I'm not trying to be political, but it seems like it. But anyway, what I wanted to see if you could comment on is the role of ego,
Yes.
in kind of the process of healing, or the process of becoming more self-aware, because it looks to me like ego is a barrier to being a more genuine person. So I'd like to hear your comments on ego, if you don't mind.
Oh, no. Yeah, no. Ego, for me, ego is like our inner critic. It's like all those people in the head. Now, my understanding and how I feel about it for myself is ego is also a protection. So ego to me, it protects me. It holds on. It's like it's the old brain. It holds on to the patterns and beliefs. It's that comfort in the discomfort, right? So let's not do anything new. Let's not show up, because based on these beliefs that's in my subconscious, we're going to get eaten. We're going to get, somebody's going to take advantage of that, just like before. So the ego plays a role of protection. There's also a healthy ego. A healthy ego keeps us safe in a different way. It helps us to be able to show up and be compassionate. People don't really talk about the positive ego, but because we don't learn to tap into that. But that's where the self-awareness comes in, Chuck, with this, is being aware of what is that voice of the ego that is keeping me safe in a more negative way, and what is the voice of the ego that keeps me moving forward, or lets me stretch and reach forward in a positive way. And so that's where the self-awareness and the work comes in, because my ego, my voice, my negative ego was stronger most of my life. Don't do that. You're going to get this. Oh my gosh. And it affected me in my business greatly. My whole body would freeze. When I started this business, my whole left side froze, and I was in so much pain, I couldn't move when I was about ready to launch my first workshop. There was nothing wrong. Nobody could find anything, but that was a body reaction that came from fear, which my ego is a part of, right? It feeds that. Oh, no, don't do that. You're going to get rejected and abandoned and blah, 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 blah. And doing the forgiveness work, I found those beliefs, from my mother, right? As I learned in the younger years, and the father being left and being neglected, being abused. It was all of that. If you do that, people are going to do this to you. So the ego is something that we can learn to quiet down. We can learn to let the positive ego speak up and let us take the risks that we need to take, especially as entrepreneurs, right? But to be able to take that, but it plays a huge role. And if we keep in mind, okay, honey, I hear you. I do anyway. You may not say this, Chuck, but it's like, okay, honey, I hear you, and I'm okay. I'm safe, right? I'm safe, and I'm not going to listen to you. And sometimes I'm like, oh no, you just shut up. I mean, because of the fact that sometimes, depending upon how it's coming at me, I have to also come at it with the power that I have. But I didn't do that for a long time until I learned how. And learning to recognize that voice is that self-awareness of understanding all those parts that go on inside of us. Who is that talking to me?
Yes. Wow.
Was that good? Does that
I've heard
answer
that
it?
called. I'm sorry. Go
Oh, no.
ahead.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. That's because to me, ego is a very tough thing to deal with, because it's in you,
Yeah.
I think we all agree we are the hardest ones to fix ourselves,
Oh yeah, we are, because we got all those parts.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks for
I
asking,
appreciate
Chuck.
it.
I've heard that ego, the analogy to a drunk monkey, like that's sitting
Yes.
on our shoulders. And we can say to that drunk monkey when it chimes in, it's okay, I got this.
Yes.
You're fine. And it kind of settles that little drunk monkey that like, oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna die,
I know.
Like, nope, you're gonna
That's
be okay.
perfect.
I got this. I'm awake. So Kelly, I see that you've unmuted yourself.
Yeah,
Thanks for
that
joining
was
us.
really great. I was unmuting because there's some chaos in here earlier. I want you guys to distract from the video. I like what you said about awareness, because I've always said to people, and myself, I have to do this all the time because I overthink everything. And that's the monkey, maybe the drunk monkeys. There might be two of them on me. But
Each shoulder, right?
awareness is the key to transformation, you know. And so if I'm aware of it, so last year I did some work around, what am I saying to myself? Why, what am I saying to myself every day? And then I really had to listen, and then I go, oh, okay, oh. And then I made my affirmations be the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it is worrying about what other people think or overthinking everything. But, you know, maybe I say, you know, I have a monkey mind, but maybe I need to learn how to be more consistent. You know, so I like what you said. I mean, it was very, very powerful. And I think, you know, when, you know, adult children of alcoholics and those of us who have been, you know, through some traumas and things, we can really resonate with your message.
Yeah.
And you know what I see happening, you said, you addressed this earlier, when I get around the family, the crazies,
Yeah.
and I see myself just starting to go back there, or just wanting to not feel.
Yeah.
Some of those things we can't always change because they're always, you know, I can't change them. I can only change how I react to them.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's beautiful, Kelly.
Yeah. But, you know, that you've really share your vulnerability and your work, and what you do. It's so valuable. Brenda, we got to get you out there, more people.
Thank you.
It's need to hear your message.
Oh, thank you, Kelly, so much.
Yes, we in the world need it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, we've gone a little bit over, but just beautiful, beautiful insights. Thank you all for sharing so genuinely, and, you know, being vulnerable, and taking this to heart too, because it's a work that we can do individually, and then also collectively. There's so much beauty in being able to acknowledge, you know, each other's journey, and be able to be a stand for each other, being our, you know, our better self, right? And stronger and healthier. So I want to just go ahead and just talk about Brenda's complimentary offer, which I'll add to the description of this replay. So she has a forgiveness list to get you started on your forgiveness journey. And tell us a little bit about that, but I'll be looking in the description for that link that you can access that. It's a complimentary offer that Brenda offers.
Yeah, the forgiveness list is what I call a living, breathing document. It's a list where you have the opportunity, and there's directions there, because a lot of people go, I don't know who I need to forgive, but we're holding these little, what I call dust bunnies, right? They build up, like we were just talking about, like Trish and Kelly were just talking about, whether it's against ourselves or someone else. So having the forgiveness list is where we can write down their names, we write down the situation, and we mark 1 to 100 of how much percentage are we still angry, or whatever the feeling is we have. The cool thing is when we start to write it, when we become consciously aware, it starts to work already. By being willing to write it down, by being willing to really take responsibility for it and your feelings, it starts to work. And then you can weed out, oh, are they still really feeling like that or not? And then you know who to work on. So it's a living, breathing document in the sense that you use it all the time. It's not a one and done deal.
And I went ahead and left that in the chat box, by the way, if somebody wants to just grab that right now, because it'll be a little bit before I get it on YouTube, on our channel. So the link is there for you to download that yourself. So Brenda, bring us home and leave us with a parting thought.
Yeah. So what I feel really important to share is that forgiveness is for you and not the other person. Forgiveness is more than just saying I'm sorry or asking for forgiveness. Forgiveness is creating an environment of acceptance and allowance so that you can live the life you choose to live, not based on old patterns, beliefs, and stories, because you are powerful.
Wow. Thank you, Brenda, for being a contribution to our Exceptional Connections community and to us on this call. And it keeps going because those who are listening to this on the replay, if you want to get a hold of Brenda to learn more about her ministry, it really is a ministry of healing hearts and being able to give people the tools they need to forgive and transform their lives. Go to BrendaReissCoaching.com. Again, that will be in the description. And thank you so much, Brenda, for all that you give and that you are willing to be vulnerable and share your journey and the tools that you've, imagine, have created to help yourself through this and then be a contribution to others as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
You're welcome.
thank you.
You're welcome to unmute yourself and just say goodbye to Brenda if you'd like. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Brenda, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good.
Bye-bye.